Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Mind Over Machine Overcoming Resistance to Generative AI Integration. This program is part of the SHRM Webcast series. You can learn about upcoming and on demand events from our e newsletters and the webcast homepage at shrm.org/webcast. SHRM thanks Keka HR for sponsoring this program and our series of free webcasts for the HR community. Before you hear from today's speaker, we want to provide with some guidance on using the SHRM Webcast interface. In the center of the screen, you'll see the title slide for today's presentation. You can move that screen by clicking and dragging it. You can also change the size of the display by dragging that window from the right. Or there's a large square sizer in the upper right of the window. You can click for full screen viewing. On the left side of the player is the video window. There you'll see our presenter, who you hear from shortly. You can move and resize the video windows the same way you can the slide screen. Beneath the speaker's window is the program resources area. We encourage you to ask questions throughout this webcast. Under the resources window, you'll find the Q&A widget. You can use that to get your questions to the speaker or to our webcast tech support team if you're having any issues viewing the program. We will hold questions for our speaker until the end of the presentation, and we'll get to as many as we have time for. On the bottom of your screen, there's a tray with buttons that control all the windows within the webcast player. The blue icon on the left of the tray brings up a certificate you can download towards the end of the program. It includes the SHRM certification, recertification credit number. Viewing this full program qualifies for 1 PDC towards SHRM CP and SHRM SCP recertification. You can claim the program for the kinds of HR recertification credit, but you will need to report the program details to claim your credit. We only have pre-approval for SHRM certification. Now about today's program, we will look at Mind Over Machine, Overcoming Resistance to Generative AI Integration. To lead this program, we have Dr. Gleb Stupinsky, who is the office whisperer by the New York Times for helping leaders overcome frustrations with generative AI. He serves as the CEO of the Future of Work consultancy, Disaster Avoidance Experts. Dr. Gleb wrote 7 best-selling books, including most recently ChatGPT for Thought Leaders and Content Creators, Unlocking the Potential of Generative AI. His cutting-edge thought leadership was featured in over 650 articles and 550 interviews in Harvard Business Review, USA Today, CBS News, Fox News, Time, Business Insider, the New York Times, and elsewhere. His writing was translated into Chinese, Spanish, Russian, Polish, Korean, French, Vietnamese, German, and other languages. His expertise comes from over 20 years of consulting, coaching, and speaking and training for Fortune 500 companies like Aflac to Xerox. It also comes from over 15 years in academia as a behavioral scientist, with 8 years as a lecturer for the UNC Chapel Hill and 7 years as a professor at Ohio State. I'm pleased to turn the microphone over to you, Dr. Gleb.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your kind introduction, Roshanta. Welcome, everyone. So let's talk about how to overcome resistance to generative AI integration. That's going to be the focus of today's presentation. What I want you to keep in mind is that you can get the resources from today's presentation by going to tinyurl.com/DAE event. That will be a copy of my book that Rashanda kindly mentioned, ChatGPT for Thought Leaders and Content Creators, which talks about how to use generative AI effectively and how to integrate it effectively in your organization, overcoming resistance. So again, that's going to be at the link, which you can see being on my screen. So my slides will not be on the slide projector. My slides will be on the screen next to me, where you could see the slides that says Mind Over Machine, Overcoming Resistance to Generative AI Integration. And they will also be under me. And the link that you should go to get my resources, the book and other resources, the slides and so on, is going to be under my name. So again, tinyurl.com/DAE event. tinyurl.com/DAE event. Okay, now that we have this out of the way, let's talk about how to actually overcome resistance to generative AI integration. Here is the outline of today's talk. Aligning generative AI with your goals, your strategic goals from an HR perspective. Then the psychology of resistance to generative AI, looking at why people feel resistant. Cognitive biases in particular, as a subcomponent of the psychology of generative AI resistance. And then how do we overcome this resistance using behavioral science-based strategies? And as Rashanda mentioned, this is my area of expertise, behavioral science. I have over 25 years of experience in this field, got a PhD in this topic, and I've helped many companies integrate generative AI, figure out how to integrate generative AI effectively in their work. In fact, I'm right now writing a book on this topic for Georgetown University Press. Then we'll talk about best practices for generative AI adoption. Again, this is based on the companies I worked with, especially HR folks of these companies. So best practices for generative AI adoption. We'll talk about some case studies for generative AI adoption so you could get the flavor of the strategies involved. And then specifically for you, developing your own generative AI adoption plan. That's going to be the shape of the presentation. At any time when you have questions, just pop them into the question info so you have the opportunity to pop them in. I see Mike Paulos already put up a question there. Great. So other folks put questions in, and we'll get to them as many of them as possible, as Rashanda mentioned at the end. All right, let's talk about aligning AI with your strategic goals. We need to understand that AI is not just a technology upgrade. It must support your long-term strategic objectives in HR. And at the same time, ensure that there's a human in the loop, human-centered decision-making, rather than just replacing people. Why does it matter for HR? Because it can greatly improve your functions in HR. And I've worked with a number of HR teams to help them improve functions in talent acquisition, retention, and talent improvement, employee engagement, performance management. It helps improve efficiency, fairness, and employee experience. And if you don't adopt it, well, that will lead to competitive disadvantage for you and your company. And that's not good. So let's talk about acquisition and retention. AI is transforming how HR can attract and retain top talent. You can get faster hiring through AI automation and resume screening, putting people on the short list if you use an effective AI tool. You can use fairer hiring by reducing bias and focusing on skills and qualification. You might have heard about bias in AI screening tools. That's if you don't use quality, high quality providers. You need to use the right provider, they address the bias. Better candidate matching with AI-driven tools because they look at the cultural fit and potential by using your pre-existing data to make sure that the people that are recommended and who are hired are going to fit your culture. Companies using AI in recruitment see reduced hiring times and improved candidate satisfaction. So a lot of benefits, a lot of benefits. Okay, let's talk about AI-driven recruitment tools. What does that involve? So there are automated resume screening filters that screen candidates based on predefined qualifications that you provide. And I see somebody has an issue with sound. So Carolyn, I think you're probably the other folks don't seem to have issues with sound. So check your tech. So automated screening filters based on predefined qualifications, that's really good. That reduces manual workload, and that helps you also to think about, okay, what filters do you use to avoid bias? Chatbots for candidate engagement provide real-time response to applicant queries. And we all know if you're in recruitment, how much time it takes to deal with applicant queries. That improves candidate experience and saves you time. Predictive hiring analytics analyze past hiring successes and see what works out to refine your recruitment strategies. So companies using AI-driven applicant tracking systems report hiring cycles that are 30 to 55% faster and more efficient. What about career growth? Talked about career potential. Employees stay longer when they see clear growth opportunities. That's a truism, right? And AI helps HR identify personalized career paths for individuals and help them show clear growth opportunities based on employee skills, interests, and performance data. So AI-driven career development programs have reduced turnover rates in companies I worked with by 20 to 30%, which is great. I mean, imagine you can get that in your company, right? Retention related to that. AI applications can be very effective for retention. AI-powered internal mobility programs can match employees with new roles so it can help them stay in the company and move up. You also have skill gap analysis that identify training opportunities to keep employees engaged. And they can see that, okay, I'm going to get skills if I stay here. Employee sentiment analysis detects early signs of dissatisfaction so that you can intervene early onward before actual turnover, which is also important. What about performance management? We know that traditional performance reviews can have a lot of problems. Biased, unfortunately, they're way too infrequent and can be quite ineffective. So AI can help enable your managers, when they learn how to use it, provide real-time data-driven feedback with continuous performance tracking rather than annual or semi-annual reviews. AI-powered tools can recommend personalized skill development opportunities, can look at skill gaps and help people develop them, and that they give managers insights to give timely and constructive feedback that feels truly personalized, much better than many managers can on their own. So organizations using AI-driven feedback tools report higher employee engagement and productivity by 20 to 40% because of these better relationships with managers, better performance feedback. Employee development related to that. AI customizes learning programs to specific career paths and skill gaps of employees, and when you're using the right AI tools. Predictive analytics can forecast leadership potential. So you can forecast who the rising stars will be, helping you build a strong succession pipeline. Employee learning. So applications and development of employees. You can have adaptive learning platforms that adjust training content based on the individual progress of your employees. You can identify future leaders by analyzing people's performance trends and competencies, and then recommendations automatically to provide employees with training that's going to be the best fit for their competencies and skills. So companies that leverage AI-driven learning see 50 to 20% faster leadership development. Again, I've seen this in companies I work with. And so those are the benefits. That's part one, the aligning with your strategic goals. But what about resistance? What causes the resistance despite these benefits? Well, the resistance isn't about logic or reason. It's driven by emotions, and we need to understand them. Addressing fears and psychological barriers is key. Understanding people's emotions and addressing them effectively before they become true obstacles. Fear of the unknown and loss of control are huge issues around generative AI. People fear change. You're not surprised to hear that, right? Especially when it threatens their autonomy, and AI seriously threatens autonomy. Employees often feel that AI makes decisions beyond the control of employees. They don't know and don't understand how AI makes its decisions, makes its choices. So that's a real problem. Common fears are, will AI replace me? That's a common fear. I mean, job loss, obviously. How do I stay relevant even if I'm not replaced? I mean, obviously, you'll be replaced if you don't stay relevant, but people want to stay relevant. And who controls AI's decisions if I'm not the one who controls them? So people don't trust AI's capabilities and fairness if the information on this topic isn't presented to them effectively, and if they don't see in pilot programs and studies how AI is there. Employees often doubt that AI is able to make fair and accurate decisions because they don't trust it. They don't understand how it's making decisions. Concerns include bias in decision making. And again, there's definitely some bias in AI decision making if you use the wrong tools and the wrong data sets. Lack of transparency in AI-driven processes. This is always the case, regardless of whether you have issues with, regardless of whether there are issues, biases, and so on, or whether there are no issues with the decision making. Lack of transparency is just a fundamental feature of how generative AI makes decisions. It's a closed box, it's a black box. There's over-reliance on AI reducing human judgment. A lot of people are afraid of that. Less empathy and loss of the human touch. Definitely an issue, especially I've seen that among HR folks, salespeople. Let's talk specifically about a subset of cognitive barriers called cognitive biases, which are the ways that we make serious errors in how we think. Now, Status quo bias is a major one here. It refers to the tendency to prefer existing methods of doing things and resist change. So people stick to the status quo, even when a better alternative exists. People feel safer with what's familiar, and they often feel uncertainty, again, even though it might be in the end better. So employees resist AI tools because they feel comfortable with their current workflows. That's an example of how the status quo bias can manifest. So AI, of course, disrupts familiar ways of working, and that creates resistance among employees. And so that's a challenge because employees may perceive AI as unnecessary or too complex, especially, frankly, older employees. I've seen this be an issue, especially for older employees who are not so tech savvy. And so that leads them to be reluctant to use AI driven tools. Organizations also, depending on who they're led, they can have a culture of doing things the way they've always done it, and delaying AI integration. So you might want to integrate AI, but the organizational culture might be an impediment, especially if a leader is not great about being future looking. So AHR teams, I've seen this be an issue, may hesitate to use AI-powered recruitment tools because they fear that automated decisions will be impersonal and they don't trust those decisions. Empathy gap. So that's the status quo. Empathy gap is another issue. People struggle to predict how they and others will feel in the future. So there's a lack of empathy for our future selves and a lack of empathy for other people. So that's a challenge. Employees underestimate how their emotions change and how the emotions of other people change. And so employees may assume that AI will complicate their jobs when it can make their work easier. So they might fear right now AI complicating their jobs and underestimate how much they'll be excited to use AI in the future when it makes their jobs easier. For example, a lot of employees have hard trouble envisioning how AI can improve efficiency, creativity, and decision making in so many ways until they actually experience it. So employees can resist AI-driven performance evaluations, which I mentioned before, much more effective than just letting managers do it, because they assume it will be rigid and unfair. Not at all. That's not how effective AI performance evaluations works, but those are people's assumptions. Functional fixedness is a third cognitive bias I want to get at. People see functions, tools, or concepts in a limited, traditional, and fixed way, preventing them from recognizing new ways of doing things. They are fixed in how things function. So that's cognitive bias here, functional fixedness. So people mentally categorize AI as a tech function rather than as a tool everyone can use. And so that's a challenge. For example, HR professionals may assume AI is only useful for IT teams, and they might not engage with it effectively. And that's a problem. HR teams may fail to see how AI can enhance things like hiring, training, and performance management, the things I've talked about today so far. For example, an HR team can dismiss AI driven analytics because they think only data teams should handle predictive modeling, whereas that can be very helpful for, of course, predicting who will succeed in the company, as an example. Okay. So let's get to part 4. We talked about resistance, the psychological resistance, and some specific ways that we make mistakes with cognitive biases. Let's talk about addressing resistance with behavioral science. So why do employees resist? They resist generative AI when it threatens their autonomy, their feeling of control, their identity, who they are, or their job security. And of course, it threatens more than one of those. Behavioral science tools can be quite effective to nudge employees toward adopting AI without coercion. And I've worked with a number of companies on helping do that. We want to frame AI as an opportunity rather than a threat to increase openness, as an example. We want to have things like incentives, good storytelling, and social proof to shift mindsets. Let's talk about some examples with nudges and incentives. Nudges, you might have heard this term before from the book Nudge by Cass Sunstein and by Sunstein and Taylor. Nudges are small changes in choice architecture that influence behavior. So what choices do we make that influence our behavior? Default AI usage options. Increase adoption without forcing change. What does that mean? That means if you make using AI a default, turn on AI use as a default, that will help people nudge it. So make it opt out rather than opt in. Framing AI as adoption as a norm, as a default, reduces hesitation. Incentives like recognizing people publicly, giving them bonuses, career growth opportunities, that helps encourage participation. Also, gamification. I've seen that be a good tool to make engagement enjoyable. Identity. So we talked about not just incentives. What about identity? How does that matter? People adopt behaviors that align with who they perceive themselves to be professionally. So you want to reframe AI as a tool that enhances expertise rather than replaces it. Have it be not a replacement for someone, but a collaborator. Like Microsoft has the tool called Copilot, but a collaborator or an intern. So make it less threatening to them, make it be something that people can see themselves using as part of their professional identity rather than as a potential replacement. That will help increase acceptance. So we talked about identity. What about status? Where are people standing in the status hierarchy? Status-driven incentives are great for encouraging participation in generative AI adoption. For example, have AI certification or exclusive access to new tools and promotion. Highlight respected early adopters to create social proof that, hey, these people are great. Managers should really reinforce AI use as a sign of innovation and leadership in their teams. So put people who use AI high up on the status hierarchy. Storytelling is very important for shaping AI perceptions. Stories greatly shape how employees view AI. Fear-based narratives are not good. That will cause more resistance. And you want to make sure that you're controlling the stories that are going on around AI. Have internal case studies from your own company and from benchmark to external companies like yours of AI success to build positive associations, positive stories. It's great to have positive testimonials from your own employees who benefited from AI to boost credibility. Using metaphors can reduce anxiety. Talked about Copilot. Copilot Kathy rather than coworker Colin. So Copilot is much more friendly and it says that you're working together rather than, oh, this is a worker just like you, because it improves the possibility of replacement. It improves the likelihood of replacement. So you don't want to do that. Leaders should communicate AI's role through compelling and relatable stories of the kind that I mentioned before. So leadership is key here. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about defaults. People tend to stick with default options rather than actively opt in. So you want to set AI-powered tools as a default to increase usage and minimize resistance. Requiring people to opt out of generative AI tools improves adoption rates. Reselecting AI-driven recommendations in HR platforms, for example, normalizes use of AI. Defaults should be designed to encourage gradual AI integration without overwhelming users. So don't overwhelm people all at once, but gradually turn on more and more defaults for AI usage. Run experiments to optimize how you're using generative AI. So this should be an iterative process. Run experiments, run pilot projects, and over time improve it. It shouldn't be a one-time rollout initiative. A/B testing different AI implementation tactics is great to identify which strategy works best. Track engagement metrics for the various projects and experiments you're running to see what incentives, what narratives, what nudges, what defaults, what status, what identity framing is going to be most effective. Pilot AI in small teams of people who are excited about it. That allows for feedback and adjustments before making it widely available, and also helps you get those narratives and stories that you could use to share AI more broadly. Okay, so we talked about behavioral science strategies. Let's talk about some more best practices that I've seen when integrating generative AI as part of my consulting. Organizations should build a culture that encourages learning, adaptation, and innovation. That's going to be incredibly important for anyone who wants to thrive in our increasingly disrupted world where generative AI is very much shaping the future. Employees need ongoing support to trust, understand, and use generative AI effectively over time. And leaders must champion AI effectively and reinforce its strategic value. AI success depends on a proactive and growth oriented mindset at all levels of the organization. Clear communication. So leaders clearly communicating about AI and its long-term benefits that must be clear and transparent. And also talk about how it will impact jobs. Be honest. Will you focus on augmenting jobs and not replacing them? Great. Share about it. People will be excited to hear it. However, if you do plan to replace jobs, will you preserve the jobs of those who best learn how to use generative AI? I often recommend to my clients, if they do plan to make job cuts, to really focus highly on who they will preserve. And if they will preserve the jobs of those who will best learn how to use generative AI, that's a great way to incentivize people to use generative AI as well. Be honest and transparent. People will value that. Don't shock people, don't surprise them. People should know why, if they're going to be let go, why they're going to be let go. And if they have not learned how to use generative AI effectively, and if you told them that your success will depend on learning how to use generative AI effectively, it's not a surprise. Leadership should show clear commitment to AI. Integrate AI into your strategic objectives. C-suite and HR leaders don't treat it as an add-on. You should model using AI by incorporating AI tools into your own workflow and talk about it. Have stories about how you've used it yourself. Also, have regular updates on the progress of AI initiatives to keep employees engaged and informed. Have a culture of continuous learning because AI is evolving rapidly. I'll tell you that the new tools that are coming out, you've heard about DeepSeek, might have heard about reasoning models. I'm not going to go into all the models that we should be using unless somebody asks me in the Q&A, because there's lots of models, but they're going to be evolving rapidly. So you want to make sure that you're using the right models for the right purpose. Employees need ongoing education. Encourage curiosity and experimentation and pay for their education as well. That will reduce AI anxiety and increase engagement with generative AI. Employees should be empowered to explore AI applications relevant to their roles in a sandbox mode, not with real client data, until you can be comfortable. You won't have a policy about how to use client data, of course, but they should explore generative AI with non-client data on their own. And then once you have a secure AI like Microsoft Copilot, which keeps your data within your enterprise, you can use that. Dedicated AI Learning Hub or Resource Center is great for providing access to AI insights. Provide external training. So your company is very unlikely to have internal high-level AI competence. So provide external training to build confidence in using generative AI. Have structured learning opportunities to develop fluency in generative AI usage. Bring in external trainers. So they will offer specialized expertise beyond internal resources. And they know how to customize generative AI adoption to your company. Have interactive training to increase adoption of generative AI usage, like workshops and hands-on AI simulations. Whenever I do a workshop, I make sure to integrate whatever the company is doing on and have a case study of, here's how you would do this with your own company data, and here's how you would actually integrate it into your workflow. So have that be a part of all presentations and trainings. Encourage innovation and experimentation with AI. That's very valuable. AI adoption is something that thrives on an environment that rewards experimentation. I told you about AI sandboxes, to have test AI tools without fear of failure, fear of using confidential client data. Hackathons and AI innovation challenges are great for fostering creativity and collaboration, especially in more tech-oriented companies. Encourage cross-departmental AI initiatives. That will help you accelerate discovery of new use cases. Don't just stick within department silos, because many processes, of course, within a corporation are going to be cross-departmental. Recognize AI-driven innovation through awards or incentives. That will help build enthusiasm. So going back to awards and incentives. How do you measure and iterate on integration efforts for generative AI? You want to have clear KPIs, key performance indicators, for generative AI usage. For example, usage rates and productivity gains. Regular feedback loops should ensure AI tools meet the needs of your employees, like a pulse survey to gauge AI sentiment and identify any areas that need improvement. Have AI success stories to highlight and reinforce positive impact. So continuously refine AI strategies based on real world data, real world experiments. Bringing in an external advisor for AI implementation is very helpful if your company doesn't have internal AI expertise, which the vast majority of companies don't. An external AI expert provides unbiased guidance and best practices for what the external companies have worked on. They help assess organizational readiness and recommend customized, tailored strategies that would work for your company's needs. You can We bridge the gap between technical implementation and workforce adoption, the psychological resistance. You don't simply want a technical advisor. You want somebody who understands the psychological elements of generative AI adoption as well as the technical and structural elements of it. AI specialists can advise leaders on effective decision making around AI. And a third party perspective helps navigate employee resistance and ensures that AI initiatives can align effectively with your business goals. Okay, let's talk about how to do this with a client case study, a national insurance company. The challenge for the company that I worked with was a high volume of job applications that made screening slow and inconsistent. So what we did is we implemented an AI-driven applicant tracking and assessment system for the company. The results was that there was a reduced time to hire by 40% because of automated resume screening. And we increased diversity by minimizing human bias in shortlisting candidates. That improved candidate experience with AI-powered chatbots. So candidates that were more willing to stick with the process and they were more happy about it. So people didn't drop out as much during the process, especially people from underrepresented groups. And the chatbot provided them with instant responses. So that was very helpful. Key takeaway here is that AI can streamline recruiting while maintaining fairness and engagement by candidates. Here's another client case study. I worked with a regional accounting firm, whose employees struggled to keep pace with evolving skills requirements. We adopted an AI-powered learning management system, an LMS, with personalized recommendations for their skill development. The results was a 30% increase in training completion rates. So that was great. Due to AI personalized driven content for the team members, we identified skilled gaps and provided more customized development plans for employees. And that helped boost retention as employees saw clear career growth pathways. So AI can improve continuous learning by providing tailored and adaptive training. And imagine how much effort that would take if you are working with each individual employee yourself, right? That's very hard. Let's talk about another client case study. So this is a Fortune 1000 CPG company, consumer packaged goods. The traditional performance reviews challenges. That was a challenge for them. So they had struggled with this. They weren't frequent, subjective, and lacked real-time insights. What we did was we provided an AI solution through AI-powered performance analytics, the kind that I mentioned before. So for continuous feedback and goal tracking. What happened? Well, managers received real-time performance insights about their employees, improving their coaching effectiveness of managers. AI-driven feedback reduced bias and improved fairness in the feedback. And there was a 25% increase in employee engagement as a result due to transparent AI-supported feedback and coaching. So key takeaway here is that AI can transform performance management from static evaluations to truly dynamic growth tools of the kind that I mentioned before. I talked about performance evaluations. Here's a real-world application of that example. So here are some lessons that we can learn from these generative AI adoption pioneers. AI adoption should begin with pilot programs to test effectiveness before you do a full-scale implementation. Small and focused AI initiatives help organizations build trust and refine strategies over time. Remember that successful AI pioneers phase adoption. So don't adopt everything at once. Start with automating more routine tasks before moving to more strategic AI applications. So those are what's from broad case studies, what I've seen is what works best. Communicate benefits clearly and consistently. Employees resist AI when they don't understand the purpose of this tool. Effective communication is crucial here. Successful companies framed AI as a tool for empowering employees, reducing fear and resistance. And when they were needed to have some job cuts, they were honest that the people whose jobs will be cut will be those who don't learn how to use generative AI effectively. Leaders need to continuously reinforce AI's value. That's what I've seen in pioneers who adopted AI effectively through storytelling, case studies, and data driven results. Provide hands on training and support. Organizations that successfully adopted AI invested in extensive employee training by external trainers and got advice from external AI experts on change management. Again, everything from the human resistance to the technical challenges to structural, how to structure this, to addressing risks and compliance issues. Hands-on learning improves adoption rates. An ongoing AI training program ensures that employees feel supported while providing improving adoption rate through that hands-on learning. Okay, what about you? How will you develop your AI adoption plan? Let's talk about you and what you can do. Evaluate your current use of automation and digital tools. Identify gaps in knowledge, infrastructure, and workflows that can be filled by AI, looking at some of the examples that I talked about here today. Assess leadership and employee openness to AI adoption through surveys, through focus groups. Determine integration potential with existing technologies. So you definitely want to be aware of how AI will integrate with existing technologies. You might want to start with pilot studies where you don't need to integrate much with existing technologies. Conduct surveys and discussions to measure readiness levels. Addressing resistance and psychological biases. How do you do that? Identify concerns about AI replacing roles or decision-making processes. Address biases like the ones I talked about, status quo bias, everything gap, and functional fixes. So you want to be aware that this is something that will very likely come up in your organization. Communicate AI's tool as a tool for support, not replacement, if that's true. A number of companies I worked with made commitments like, we're not going to let anybody go just because of using generative AI here. So that's a commitment that you can make. And then you could say, after that, only people who we will let go, people who haven't learned how to use generative AI effectively. That might not be the case for you. You might not be able to make that commitment, and that's okay. But you need to be transparent and honest about the commitments you can make. Use transparency to build trust in AI-driven processes and provide clear examples of AI improving fairness and efficiency, because people care about both of those. Launching a small-scale AI pilot involves choosing one or two test cases where AI can deliver quick, visible wins. For example, implement AI in recruitment, employee feedback, or training. Select a diverse test group of people who are excited, but from diverse parts of the organization, to evaluate AI's effectiveness. Set clear objectives and success metrics before you deploy it. Gather initial feedback to refine the AI integration approach. Measure AI success and iterate based on the feedback that you get. Track adoption rates, efficiency gains, and accuracy improvements over time. Analyze how employees and leaders provide feedback on AI usability concerns and fix those issues quickly. Assess the AI's impact on hiring, retention, decision quality, whatever you might be measuring. Identify barriers that slow generative AI adoption and adjust your strategies of time. And scale AI implementation based on what you learned from the pilot project. How about the long-term AI integration strategy? Establish ongoing AI training programs for your staff because AI changes over time and you want to be ready for that. Update policies to ensure ethical AI use and mitigation of biases. Encourage cross-functional collaboration between HR and IT. IT will provide technical support, HR will provide the human management resistance support. Continuously monitor AI performance and refine implementation over time, and develop a roadmap for scaling AI-driven transformation over time. Okay, let's talk about key takeaways and next steps. First, resistance to AI is psychological, not just technical. Address biases proactively using behavioral science strategies that I talked about. Align AI initiatives with the strategic goals of HR. Foster a culture of learning and collaboration. Develop a clear roadmap for adopting generative AI. Now it's up to you. What's one action you will do differently as a result of this talk? I want you to think about that. And I want to remind you that in order to get the additional resources, please go to tinyurl.com/DAE event. It's going to be right now, you can see it under my name, tinyurl.com/DAE event to get a copy of my book and other generative AI resources. You'll get a copy of the link to the slides and a copy of my best-selling book, ChatGPT for Thought Leaders and Content Creators, Unlocking the Potential of Generative AI for innovative and effective content creation. And I'll be happy to provide free coaching for integrating these strategies into your work. Again, in order to get these resources, go to tinyurl, tinyurl.com/DAE event. tinyurl.com/DAE event. It's going to be right under my name. And I'll be happy to take any questions at this stage.
We have a few questions that are coming in and encourage all the audience members to continue to send in their questions at this time. An audience member wrote that what happens if the performance review is not database focusing on service quality, not quantity? Can AI replace human judgment? Um, I also want to point out for everyone, if you would like to vote in today's poll, if you would like to receive a demo from Keka HR, feel free to vote in that at this moment while we are doing the Q&A. And I can also repeat that question again, Dr. Gleb, my apologies.
Okay, yeah, repeat the question so that other folks can.
What happens if the performance review is not what happens if the performance review is not database focused on service quality, not quantity? Can AI replace human judgment?
The crucial thing about AI performance review is that it's not meant to replace human judgment in this case. I'll remind folks that how it works is that it provides information to the manager. So then the manager gets to make the decision about what to do about the information they get. So the feedback goes to the manager, whether it's about quantity or quality. The manager can decide somebody did more things, but maybe it was lower quality, and somebody else did fewer things, but it was higher quality. The AI can get that, and it can be tuned to get that information. But the crucial thing here is that it's the manager who is making the decision, not the AI.
Another great question that came in, do you have any tips for creating a culture of growth and learning?
One thing to think about when you're trying to create a culture of growth and learning is to see what might impede that culture. So we talked about the fears, right? The biases. The first step to creating a culture of growth and learning is to remove fear, or at least minimize it, because people are very unlikely to learn and grow when they are afraid. So I think you want to start with that. You want to figure out what are the fears impede people to be excited about learning. Then another step that I find to be quite helpful that I didn't go into today in depth because I didn't have time for it, but a tip I'll give you is to get information about who is most excited about generative AI and get them involved in being peer mentors. So creating the culture of growth and learning, praise them, put them on the pedestal, and you got to have that status of these people are great at generative AI usage, and get them to agree to be peer mentors so that they can help out, whether they'll provide some training sessions or some hands-on support, or just be known as here's Sarah, who is in recruitment, and she is great at using our new generative AI-powered recruitment tools. So go to Sarah when you have questions.
Another question that came in, I understand that the manager still gets to decide what to do with the information that the AI provides. However, lazy managers will default to whatever AI says. How do you address that issue?
So you want to really provide information to the managers, and that's a nice thing about defaults, right? HR will work with IT to create defaults. And you want to make sure that whatever the information to the manager that is provided as a default is the best information available. If the manager is already lazy, they are doing much, much worse right now than they would be doing if they had more data that's provided by a generative AI tool that HR has input on how the data is provided and summarized for the manager. So the managers, yeah, the lazy ones will be using the tool. Great. It's much better than they're doing right now. Because if they're lazy now, they're not doing a great job. And so at least they'll be doing as well as the tool is providing them with the data. And the better managers will be, of course, doing better.
This is an interesting question. Can AI be developed to have empathy or emotional intelligence?
AI can definitely exhibit empathy and emotional intelligence, no question about it. If you've used AI, I mean, a lot of people use AI as a therapist. I'm not suggesting you do that, and I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, but there's many, very, very many people who have relationships with AI, romantic ones, social ones. They use AI as a therapist because it's really good as appearing to have emotional intelligence and empathy. So no question that AI is right now the way it is. Like you go right now, even the free version of ChatGPT, and you tell it your problems, it will be and you ask it to take on the role of therapist, it will do a really good job. And of course, if you use the paid version of ChatGPT, it will do an even better job. So it's a really good tool for that. That doesn't mean it actually has emotions or it actually has emotional intelligence, but the way it responds to people, the way it's programmed, it has really good ways of emulating emotional intelligence and empathy.
So, this will be the last question. What is the adoption rate of AI in human resources in higher education?
It's a little bit lower than the overall adoption of AI elsewhere because higher education tends to be a little bit more resistant to generative AI usage. So uh, a number of AI, I've worked with a number of higher education institutions that have been putting their toe into the water on generative AI usage, but there's more resistance, more challenges in higher education. And so the higher education HR leaders who are using it are more at the forefront than those who are in other industries.
Well, thank you, Dr. Gleb. I think this is a perfect time to transition over to Shashir from Kaka HR, who will speak to us for a few minutes. Shashir?
Hi there. Thanks so much, Rashanda. And thanks so much, Dr. Gleb. A beautiful session, a very
Thank you.
knowledgeable session, in fact. And in fact, let me know if you can see my screen.
Not yet.
We can now
Yes,
see your
we can.
screen.
Perfect. In fact, I did have a particular flow for today's session. And I'm going to just change that entire flow because I loved what Dr. Gleb said. And picking on to what his data points were, that is AI plus performance, AI plus engagement, AI plus empathy, AI plus efficiency in decision making, AI plus learning, training, AI plus human judgment. And all of this is something that the world is moving towards. And KK is also trying to solve something similar. If you see, these are the different departments, within our ecosystem, within HR Tech. And what if you know, one were to say that we can actually help you get intelligence across these departments or across these modules. That is there a correlation between timesheets and payroll? Is there a correlation between timesheets and performance management? Is there a correlation between performance management and learning management, or learning management and rewards, right? And KK is actually working towards that data point. KK is working towards giving you intelligence or helping your AI deduce better insights from these data points within your organization. Obviously, you would have heard concepts such as, 85% of employees may not be engaged, or if an employee is engaged within a workforce, they are, likely to help your company become 23% more profitable. Now, does this data point apply in your organization? Can the profitability be higher? Can the onboarding give you a much better retention? This is exactly what Keka is working towards. Keka is the only platform which has all these modules under a single umbrella. Now, with that being said, let me go back and start from scratch about who we are and what we do. Um, Keka is the only platform at this point in time which kind of helps you take care of payroll, people, performance management, all the way from the hiring start, that is from an ATS to a payroll, from timesheets to reward management. A single platform to answer all your HR, finance, and project management requirements. Um, I'll skip these slides because Dr. Gleb already spoke a lot more about them. Uh, and we're actually here to solve these problems. CX, customer experience plus employee experience, help you get 10x more growth. Very similar to what Dr. Gleb said, and we are actually here to make this happen. Um, Talking a little bit about Keka and our journey, uh, our first product launch happened in 2016. We grew by adding more and more customers. One big milestone that we saw was by 2020, we had 7x growth. By 2022, we raised a Series A funding of over 50 plus million. Not trying to show off what we've got, but just kind of subtly saying that we're here to stay. And by 2024, we have 10,000 plus customers globally. With that being said, um, of these 10,000 customers, we have customers ranging from different verticals, from IT services, pharma manufacturing, BFSI, staffing. We have this tech, and we can share this with you at a later point as well. Um, and the most important aspect of things is that all these modules is what we offer you. If you want, you can take all these modules. Love to show you how we do this. If not, if you just want to try a particular element, let's say you just want to try payroll, just want to try project management, you just want to try ATS, we also extend that offering in smaller modules so that you can plug and play within your system or start integrating it within multiple systems. Nevertheless, we are the only platform which does all of it under a single umbrella. I also have Ronak with me, who's my solution expert. Ronak, if you quickly want to add anything else which I might have missed.
Sure. So, I think you've covered most of the things quite well. And from my side, I just want to add that what Dr. Kleb talked about today about the best practices using AI, right? So, if you remember, we grew from 2016 till today, where we are, where we have 10,000 plus customers across the group. This only happened because we listened to our customers and we kept our pace on the R&D side of things. From an AI perspective today, uh, around performance management, if you talk about, right, you help managers set up the right OKRs. They help plan the entire structure from who should be assigned to what would be the right goal for someone based on their skill sets. If we talk about it from a hiring perspective, automating certain workflows or getting the job easier for the recruiter in terms of scheduling interviews, planning out job descriptions, and getting things to flow much more smoothly so that the human aspect of HR will always remain, but the touch to make life easier, to be present when an industry which is moving so fast, and in a world that's getting disrupted every day, to leverage all of the technology at our hands and give it to the HRs to make sure that they are able to do their jobs at the best of their abilities. That's what KEKA stands for. So we do put in the heart of the HR from our side. Yeah, sure. That's from my end. And just an add on, as we move forward, we'd love to have you when we do a demonstration, and love to have more discussions around what are your thoughts and how you think we should work more on leveraging AI from our side. Thank you.
Perfect. I think just one last pitch that we have all the compliance in place to get you going. And yep, that's it from my side. Thank you so much. Over to you, Rashanda.
Well, thank you so much. We are going to come to the close of this program. Now, before we officially close, I have a couple of announcements. Today's webcast is proudly sponsored by Keka HR. Since its launch 8 years ago, Keka HR has been quietly revolutionizing the HR industry. With its unwavering focus on building an employee centric global HR platform, Keka HR takes care of everything from hiring and onboarding to running payroll and offboarding. This comprehensive approach has earned the trust of over 10,000 businesses worldwide. Today, Keka HR stands on one of the top platforms in the segment, attracting the largest number of new customers, all without any advertising spend, fueled purely by customer love. To learn more, please visit keka.com. So here's the information on the PDC that you've earned today through today's program. That number is on your screen, 25 dash, oh, pardon, 25 C6W6G. So we have about 1 minute before the program window closes. If you haven't downloaded your certificate for today's program, you can do that now. That number is on your certificate. However, you do not need certificates to claim your recertification credit. Those certificates come in handy in the unlikely event that you were audited. But if you're missing some or all of your certificates from SHRM Webcast, don't worry, we can get you documentation. Just let our customer care team know these SHRM Webcast certificates you're missing. You can contact them at the address of SHRM at SHRM.org. When the program window closes in just a moment, an evaluation form will pop up. We hope that you'll take a few moments to fill that out. It'll help us assess this program and to plan future events. Before we sign off, I would like to thank Dr. Gleb and our speaker Shashir from Keka HR for the information they provided today. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in and for being with us and for choosing SHRM for HR Webcasts. This concludes today's program.
You're welcome.